Murim was never a war between good and evil. It was a story written by the winners, so you would hate the people they buried. And by the time you hear the word demonic, your enemy has already been chosen for you. Because history does not only tell you what happened, it tells you who to admire, who deserves a temple and a place in the light. And it tells you who to fear, who must be hunted and erased from the world. One side receives white robes, sacred halls, and beautiful names. The other receives mountains, exile, and a word the world will never forgive, demonic. But strip away the banners, strip away the legends, strip away the songs written after the war was already won, and Murim becomes something far uglier than a battle between heroes and monsters. It becomes a trap. Because in Murim, no one is born a saint, and no one begins as a monster. The Orthodox factions are called righteous because they inherited the center of the world. The demonic cult is called evil because they were thrown to its edge. But the lie did not end with a name. It became a world. Centuries ago, before the world had heroes and demons, there was only land, fertile land, trade roads, medicine valleys, river routes, cities full of grain, weapons, and disciples waiting to be claimed. The Central Plains were not sacred because the righteous lived there. They became sacred because everyone wanted them. Before morality entered the story, there was a territorial war, a brutal struggle for the heart of Murim. And when the dust settled, the winners did what winners always do. They took the center, but extermination was expensive, so they chose a cheaper war, exile. They pushed the defeated outward, far away from the roads, far away from the markets, far away from the warm valleys where children could grow without learning hunger as their first master. The exiles were driven into the 100,000 mountains, not just as punishment, as a wall, a living buffer between the comfort of the center and everything the center feared. But exile was not the cruelest weapon. The name was, because swords alone cannot rule for centuries. So the victors reached for something sharper, not steel, a name. They called themselves the Orthodox Alliance. They called their order righteous. And for the ones they had broken, displaced, and buried beyond the mountains, they chose a name the world would never question: demonic. Now ask yourself, what happens after centuries of victory? What happens when the descendants of warriors no longer have to survive the world their ancestors conquered? Human nature takes over. The first sect founders may have wanted peace. Maybe they believed the Central Plains needed order. Maybe they believed their swords could protect the weak. But the Orthodox Alliance did not simply protect the world. They divided it. One sect controlled the mountain passes. Another controlled the medicine halls. Another controlled the roads. Another controlled the right to decide which killing was justice and which killing was evil. But peace, once inherited, becomes property. And property needs walls. It needs rules. It needs guards. It needs tribute. It needs people who bow and call the cage a sanctuary. And this is where righteousness began to rot. Then comfort did what no enemy could. It rotted them from the inside. The later generations stopped bleeding for survival. They stopped sharpening their souls. They no longer stood between the weak and the storm. They stood above them, managing the world they once swore to protect, selling safety in the name of virtue. In the Orthodox world, the weak are safe, but only if they kneel. You may live under their roof, but the roof is not yours. You may pray in their halls, but the gods answer to old men behind silk curtains. You may call it sanctuary, but every sanctuary has a gate. Every gate has a lock, and every lock has a hand holding the key. That is the trap of the Orthodox world. Not chaos, order, not hunger, obedience, not a blade at your throat, but a leash around your life. White robes above, bent backs below. A golden order polished by ritual and fed by the lives of the tethered. Now turn your eyes to the 100,000 mountains. The Orthodox call them demons. Convenient, isn't it? First, you exile a people to the edge of the world. Then you act shocked when the edge makes them sharp. Out there, beyond the warm roads and fertile valleys, food does not answer prayers. Winter does not care about virtue. A child cannot eat honor. A starving family cannot survive on beautiful teachings written in the Central Plains, when food meant for 3 must be split between 10 mouths. Morality becomes expensive. Kindness existed there. Mercy existed there. Compassion existed there. They simply did not last. The gentle froze first. The forgiving were buried by those desperate enough to live, and century after century, the mountain selected for one truth. Power, not noble blood, not family name, not sacred reputation. Power, that is why the demonic cult became a machine. Ruthless, efficient, adaptive. Not because cruelty was beautiful, but because weakness was fatal. In the abyss, rank is not inherited, it is taken. Obedience is not requested, it is forced from fear, hunger, and the desperate hope that the strongest person in the room can keep tomorrow alive. Their cruelest trials were not there to teach mercy. They were meant to raise people who could crawl out of the dark, leave the weak behind, and still call it survival. So call them monsters if you want, but remember this: monsters are not born in the dark. They are made when the world locks people outside the light and tells them to survive. So now the question is no longer simple. It is not who is good. It is not who is evil. If you woke up tomorrow inside this Murim world, which trap would you choose? Would you crawl toward the Orthodox Alliance, the white halls, the sacred names, the old masters smiling behind closed doors? They will protect you. They will feed you. They will give you a place inside the walls, but only if you bow, only if you obey, only if you accept that your life is a piece on a board you will never be allowed to see. Break once, and the sanctuary becomes a prison. Or would you walk into the 100,000 mountains? No comfort, no mercy, no promise that your bloodline, your kindness, or your prayers will save you. Only the cold gaze of the heavenly demon, a blunt sword thrown at your feet, and one command:
survive and become something the world can no longer ignore.
So choose your prison: the golden leash of the Orthodox, or the scarred freedom of the demonic cult. Leave your faction below, and if you want to keep walking through the darker side of Murim, subscribe. I'll see you in the dark.